The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under the door of the garage apartment where Marcus Chen had been living for the past 3 months. The manila envelope looked innocent enough, but Marcus's hands shook as he pulled out the thick stack of legal documents, each page representing another piece of his life being systematically dismantled by the woman he'd loved for 12 years. Before we dive into this story, subscribe to the channel so you're always first to know. Hit like if you're ready for the next revelation, and comment where you're watching from. New York, Los Angeles, maybe Chicago. All right, let's continue with Marcus as he discovers what his wife really planned. Marcus Chen sat on the edge of the futon that served as his bed, reading through legal language that translated to financial devastation. His wife, Jessica, was claiming the house. Fair enough, it was in her name. She was claiming his business, the software company he'd built from nothing over 10 years. She was claiming his retirement accounts, his savings, even the car he'd been driving. According to these papers, Marcus Chen would walk away from his marriage with exactly nothing except the clothes he was wearing and whatever debt his lawyer would charge to fight this. The kicker was the final page, a restraining order prohibiting him from entering their home, contacting her directly, or coming within 500 feet of her workplace. As if he were some kind of threat, as if 12 years of marriage, of partnership, of building a life together meant nothing more than a legal obstacle to be removed with the right paperwork and the right lies. Marcus stared at the signature at the bottom. Jessica Chen, formerly Jessica Morgan. The handwriting was hers, confident and flowing, the same signature that had been on their marriage certificate, on the mortgage for their first apartment, on the business and corporation papers for his company. She'd signed all of those documents with him, celebrating each milestone. Now she was using that same elegant signature to erase him from his own life. His phone buzzed with a text from his business partner, David Park. Emergency meeting. Jessica's lawyer just served us with papers claiming she owned 75% of the company. We need to talk. Now, Marcus felt his stomach drop. The company, his company, was the one thing he thought was safe. He'd started TechFlow Solutions 8 years ago, building custom software for small businesses. Jessica had supported him, sure, had even helped with bookkeeping in the early days, but the business was his baby, his creation, built on his skills and his late nights and his endless problem-solving. How could she possibly claim ownership of something she'd barely been involved with? He threw on clothes and drove to the small office building where TechFlow occupied the 3rd floor. David was waiting in the conference room, papers spread across the table, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. "Tell me this is a mistake," Marcus said, picking up the legal documents. "Tell me there's no way she can actually take the company." David's expression said otherwise. "I've been on the phone with our lawyer for the past hour. Apparently, when you incorporated 8 years ago, you listed Jessica as a co-founder. Do you remember doing that?" Marcus searched his memory, thinking back to the chaos of starting a business while working full-time, the endless paperwork and legal requirements. "I might have. She was helping with the books back then, and the accountant said something about tax benefits of having a spouse as a co-founder. But she never did any of the technical work, never coded, never dealt with clients. How can she be a co-founder if she didn't actually found anything?" "Because you signed papers saying she was," David replied grimly. "And according to these documents her lawyer sent, she's claiming that verbal agreement you had about ownership structure, the one where you and I were 50-50 partners, was never properly documented. Without clear documentation showing otherwise, her claim as co-founder gives her significant leverage." Marcus sank into a chair, his mind racing through implications. TechFlow Solutions generated about $800,000 in annual revenue. They had 6 employees, a solid client base, and contracts that would ensure income for the next 2 years at minimum. If Jessica took 75% ownership, she'd control the company. She could force him out of the business he'd built, sell it to competitors, or simply run it into the ground out of spite. "There's more," David said quietly. "She's filed a claim saying you used marital assets to start the company. The initial $50,000 investment. Remember you took that from your joint savings?" She's arguing that gives her additional claim to ownership, separate from the co-founder status. Marcus remembered that $50,000, it had been his inheritance from his grandmother, money he'd deposited in their joint account, because that's what married people did. They shared everything. He'd used it to cover startup costs, office space, equipment, initial marketing. He'd told Jessica about it, and she'd agreed it was a good investment. Now she was using his transparency against him, claiming that money gave her rights to everything he'd built with it. How did I not see this coming? Marcus rubbed his face, exhaustion and disbelief warring in his chest. How did I not protect myself? Because you trusted your wife, David said simply. Because you thought you were building something together. For both of you. That's not stupidity, Marcus. That's just what happens when you love someone. Marcus pulled out his phone and called his divorce attorney, Frank Morrison. The call went straight to voicemail, which probably meant Frank was already in court. Marcus left a message. Jessica's claiming ownership of my company. I need to know how bad this is and what we can do to stop it. Call me as soon as you get this. While he waited for Frank to call back, Marcus did what he always did when stressed. He worked. He opened his laptop and reviewed code for their largest client, a regional hospital network that was implementing a new patient management system. The work required focus, precision, attention to detail. For a few hours, he could lose himself in problems that had clear solutions, unlike the legal nightmare consuming his personal life. Around 3 p.m., Frank Morrison finally called back. His tone told Marcus everything before he said a single word. I've reviewed the documents Jessica's lawyer sent. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. She's got a strong case for significant ownership of your company. The co-founder designation, the use of marital assets for startup costs, and the fact that you never formalized a partnership agreement with David in writing, it all adds up to leverage she can use. Marcus felt his world shrinking. So what do I do? Just hand her the company I built? Everything I've worked for? We can fight this, but it's going to be expensive and the outcome isn't guaranteed. Her lawyer is smart. They've built a case that would be expensive to challenge and risky to take to trial. Most judges will split marital assets down the middle. And if she can argue the company is a marital asset created with marital funds and marital labor, she's got a claim. What about the house? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The house is in her name only. You signed a quitclaim deed 3 years ago when you refinanced. Do you remember why you did that? Marcus did remember. Jessica had said it would make the refinancing easier, something about her credit score being better at the time. He'd trusted her. He'd signed the papers without really reading them, because that's what you did when you loved someone. You trusted them not to destroy you. The retirement accounts? Marcus's voice was flat now, already knowing each answer would be worse than the last. Joint accounts. She's entitled to half at minimum, possibly more depending on how the judge sees the overall asset distribution. Your savings account is joint too. She's already withdrawn everything. According to bank records, she took out $87,000 last week. That's gone, Marcus. Even if we can prove she did it improperly, getting it back will take months or years of legal battles. Marcus closed his eyes. $87,000. Years of careful saving, of living below their means, of building a safety net. Gone in one transaction because he'd thought joint accounts meant shared trust, not unilateral access to destroy someone financially. There has to be something, Marcus said. Some protection I have, some way this doesn't end with me losing everything. Frank was quiet for a moment. Tell me about the prenup situation. Did you guys sign anything before the marriage? No. Jessica said prenups meant you didn't really trust each other. She said real love meant being all in, no safety nets, no escape plans. I agreed because I was young and stupid and in love. Okay, what about documentation of the business? Do you have emails, texts, anything showing Jessica's actual involvement or lack thereof in the day-to-day operations? Marcus thought about it. I have 8 years of emails showing I'm the one dealing with clients, writing proposals, handling all the technical work, David and I have dozens of text conversations about business decisions that never include Jessica. Would that help? It might. It establishes a pattern of you being the actual operator of the business while she was uninvolved. That could counter her claims of being a functioning co-founder. What else? Think carefully. Is there anything unusual about how she's pursuing this divorce? Any leverage we might have? Marcus started to say no, then remembered something. The timing. Jessica had filed for divorce exactly 1 week after Marcus's biggest client, the hospital network, had signed a 3-year contract worth $1.2 million. He'd told her about it at dinner, excited about how this contract would secure the company's future. 3 days later, she'd asked him to move out. 4 days after that, divorce papers. The timing is suspicious, Marcus said slowly. She filed literally right after I landed our biggest contract ever. Is that relevant? Maybe. If we can show she was planning this divorce specifically to coincide with your company's increased value, it might demonstrate opportunism that a judge wouldn't look favorably on. But that's circumstantial. We need something concrete. After hanging up with Frank, Marcus sat in his car in the parking garage, feeling the weight of total financial destruction pressing down on him. He was 40 years old, about to lose his house, his business, his savings, and start over with nothing. Jessica had planned this, carefully positioned herself legally, to take everything while leaving him with debt and starting over money he didn't have. His phone buzzed with another text, this time from his younger sister Maya. Mom told me about the divorce. I'm so sorry. Call me if you need anything. Marcus called her because Maya was the one person who'd never liked Jessica, who'd told him at the wedding that something felt off about how fast everything was moving. Maya answered on the first ring. I tried to warn you, were her first words, delivered without satisfaction, just sadness. I know you did. I should have listened. What's the damage? Maya was a CPA, practical and direct. Marcus told her everything. The house, the business, the savings, the systematic destruction of his financial life. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, this sounds coordinated, like she had help planning this. Nobody executes this kind of financial strategy without professional advice. Her lawyer, obviously. Maybe. But I'm thinking bigger. Do you know if she's been in contact with a financial advisor? Because the timing here, waiting until after your big contract, draining the savings before filing, positioning the business claim just right, that's not just good legal advice. That's strategic financial planning. Marcus felt a chill. I don't know who she's been talking to. We haven't exactly been sharing our calendars lately. Here's what I'm thinking, Maya said, her CPA brain clearly working through possibilities. If Jessica had professional help planning this divorce as a financial strategy, there might be a paper trail. Consultations with advisors, communications about asset distribution, planning documents. If we can find that, it might show intent to defraud you, which changes everything legally. How would I even find that? I can't go in the house. I can't access her email or her phone. No, but you can request it in Discovery. If Frank files the right motions, Jessica's lawyer has to turn over communications related to the divorce and financial planning. They won't want to because it might show their hand, but they have to if the judge orders it. For the first time since seeing those divorce papers, Marcus felt a spark of something other than despair. You think there's something there? I think someone who executes this kind of systematic asset grab either got very lucky or got very good advice. And if it's the latter, there's documentation. People who plan financial destruction don't keep it all in their heads. They want records to make sure they don't miss anything. Marcus called Frank back immediately. I want to file for Discovery. Full disclosure of all communications Jessica's had with financial advisors, accountants, lawyers, anyone who might have helped her plan this divorce. My sister thinks there's a paper trail. Frank sounded skeptical but willing. Discovery in divorce cases can be contentious. Her lawyer will fight it, claim attorney-client privilege, argue that planning documents are protected. But if we can show good cause, like evidence she's hiding assets or manipulating the process, we might get a judge to order limited discovery. What would count as evidence? The timing you mentioned, filing right after your big contract, the fact that she drained your savings before filing rather than after, the systematic nature of her claims to everything you own. That all suggests pre-planning that goes beyond just consulting a divorce lawyer. That suggests she's been strategizing this for a while, which means there's communication about it somewhere. Over the next 2 weeks, Frank filed motions for discovery while Marcus tried to keep TechFlow Solutions running despite the chaos. David took on more client-facing work while Marcus focused on the technical side, trying to avoid situations where clients might ask about his personal life. The hospital network project consumed most of his days, which was a blessing. It left less time to think about how completely his life was imploding. Jessica's lawyer, a shark named Patricia Henderson, fought every discovery request. She filed motions to quash, claiming attorney-client privilege, arguing that Marcus's requests were fishing expeditions designed to harass her client. But Frank was persistent, and Judge Margaret Reyes, who'd been assigned to their case, seemed skeptical of Patricia's blanket denials. The breakthrough came during a hearing 3 weeks after the divorce papers had been served. Frank presented the timeline of events. Jessica's request for Marcus to move out came 3 days after he'd told her about the hospital contract. The divorce filing came 1 week after the contract was signed. The savings account was drained the day before divorce papers were served. Her claims to the business came with very specific language about ownership percentages and asset valuations that suggested professional financial analysis rather than just legal advice. Judge Reyes listened to all of this with a neutral expression, then turned to Patricia Henderson. "Counselor, these timelines are concerning. I'm inclined to grant limited discovery. Specifically, any communications between your client and financial advisors regarding asset valuation or divorce planning for the 6 months prior to filing. That's narrow enough to not burden your client, but broad enough to address the timing concerns raised by opposing counsel." Patricia tried to argue, but Judge Reyes cut her off. "The timing here suggests premeditation that goes beyond normal divorce preparation. If Mrs. Chen has nothing to hide, producing these documents shouldn't be a problem. You have 2 weeks to comply." Marcus felt his first real hope in a month. If there were communication showing Jessica had planned this divorce as a financial strategy, it might change everything. It might show that she'd manipulated him, used his trust against him, committed fraud by hiding her intentions while positioning herself to take everything. The documents arrived 13 days later, delivered by Patricia Henderson with obvious reluctance. Frank called Marcus the moment he started reviewing them. "We've got her." Frank's voice carried vindication. "Marcus, these emails are exactly what we needed." Marcus drove to Frank's office immediately. The documents were spread across his conference table: printed emails, text message screenshots, consultation notes from meetings. Frank pointed to an email dated 4 months before Jessica filed for divorce. "This is from Jessica to a financial advisor named Robert Sterling. Read the first paragraph." Marcus read aloud. "As discussed, I need to understand the optimal timing for filing for divorce to maximize my asset claims. My husband's company is pursuing a major contract that could significantly increase valuation. If we file before the contract is signed, would that affect my ownership claims? Or should we wait until after to ensure the increased value is considered a marital asset?" The words hit Marcus like physical blows. 4 months before filing, while they were still sleeping in the same bed, sharing meals, talking about their future, she'd been planning his financial destruction and asking advisors how to optimize it. Frank showed him another document. "This is even better. It's a response from the financial advisor, dated 3 months ago. He outlines a strategy: have Marcus move out first so she can claim abandonment. File immediately after the major contract to claim the increased business value. Drain joint accounts before filing to prevent him from accessing funds for legal representation. Use the co-founder designation from the original incorporation to claim majority ownership." Marcus read through the strategy document with numb disbelief. Every move Jessica had made, every timing decision, every claim in the divorce papers, it was all laid out here as a calculated plan to leave him with nothing. The advisor even had a section titled Minimizing Husband's Ability to Fight Back that detailed how to structure claims to be expensive to challenge while leaving Marcus without the resources to mount an effective defense. "There's more," Frank said, pulling out another document. "This is a contract between Jessica and Robert Sterling for divorce asset maximization consulting. She paid him $15,000 up front for his services, which included valuation analysis of your business, strategic timing recommendations, and coordination with her divorce attorney. This isn't just Jessica being vindictive. This is a professional operation designed to financially destroy you." Marcus felt rage and vindication warring in his chest. The rage was obvious. His wife had paid someone $15,000 to help destroy him. But the vindication came from knowing his instincts had been right. This hadn't been a marriage falling apart naturally. This had been a calculated exit strategy executed with professional help. "What does this mean for the case?" Marcus asked. Frank's smile was grim but satisfied. "It means we have evidence of fraud. She didn't just plan a divorce, she planned a financial ambush. She manipulated the timing to maximize her claims while minimizing your ability to fight back. She drained assets while still pretending to be a functioning spouse. And she did all this with professional help while hiding her true intentions from you. Can we use this to stop her from taking the business? We can use this to challenge every claim she's made. The business, the house, the retirement accounts, all of it, because she didn't come to this divorce with clean hands. She came with a strategy designed to commit fraud against her spouse. Judges take a very dim view of that kind of behavior. The next hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Frank filed an emergency motion to freeze all assets pending review of the newly discovered evidence. He submitted the emails, the financial advisor's strategy document, and the consulting contract as exhibits. Patricia Henderson filed a frantic response claiming the documents were protected by privilege and shouldn't have been disclosed. But Judge Reyes was unimpressed. The courtroom was tense when Marcus arrived. Jessica sat at the plaintiff's table with Patricia Henderson, her expression carefully neutral. But Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the edge of the table. She knew the game had changed. Judge Reyes entered and everyone stood. When they sat back down, the judge looked directly at Jessica with an expression that made Marcus think of his high school principal catching someone cheating on a test. "Mrs. Chen, I've reviewed the documents produced in discovery. I have serious concerns about the timing and nature of your divorce filing. Would you like to explain why you hired a financial advisor specifically to help maximize your asset claims against your husband?" Patricia Henderson tried to intervene. "Your Honor, that's a mischaracterization of..." "Counselor, I'm asking your client directly. Mrs. Chen, please answer the question." Jessica's voice was steady but quiet. "I wanted to understand my rights and options before making the decision to file for divorce." "Your rights and options? Or how to maximize your take from your husband's assets?" Judge Reyes's tone was sharp. "Because these documents don't read like someone trying to understand their rights. They read like someone planning a financial ambush." She held up one of the emails. "You asked your financial advisor about optimal timing to file for maximum asset claims. You strategized about when to move your husband out of the house. You drained joint accounts before filing specifically to limit his ability to mount a legal defense. This isn't someone trying to understand their rights, Mrs. Chen. This is someone executing a calculated plan to financially destroy their spouse." Patricia Henderson tried again. "Your Honor, people going through difficult divorces often seek professional advice. There's a difference between seeking advice and hiring someone to help you commit fraud, Counselor." Judge Reyes set the paper down. "I'm particularly concerned about the timing of the business claims. Mr. Chen lands his biggest contract, tells his wife about it in what he thought was a moment of shared celebration, and within a week he's being moved out of his own home. That's not coincidence. That's opportunism." The judge turned to Frank. "What are you asking for, Counselor?" Frank stood. "Your Honor, we're asking the court to reject Mrs. Chen's claims to the business based on fraudulent conduct. We're asking for the joint savings account withdrawal to be returned in full. We're asking for the house to be reconsidered as a marital asset despite the deed situation. given that the quitclaim was signed under false pretenses. And we're asking for sanctions against Mrs. Chen and her advisors for conducting a fraudulent scheme against her spouse. Judge Reyes nodded slowly. Here's what's going to happen. All assets are frozen pending a full accounting. Mrs. Chen, you will return the $87,000 you withdrew from the joint savings account within 48 hours. The business claims are suspended pending further review, but I'm preliminarily skeptical that someone who hired a consultant to maximize their asset grab deserves to profit from a company they never worked in. She paused, her expression severe. As for the house, I need more information about the circumstances under which Mr. Chen signed that quitclaim deed. If it was signed under false pretenses or with misrepresentation, that deed might not be valid. Mr. Morrison, file a motion for fraud regarding the deed transfer. We're going to look at everything. Patricia Henderson's face had gone pale. Your Honor, my client was simply trying to protect herself by lying to her husband about her intentions while positioning herself to take everything he'd built. That's not protection, Counselor. That's theft, with better paperwork. Judge Reyes closed the file. This case is going to trial, and I suggest your client start thinking very carefully about settlement, because if we go to trial with this evidence, I'm inclined to see this as fraud, which means very different asset distribution rules apply. Walking out of the courthouse, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope, not certainty. The legal system was still complicated and expensive, and nothing was guaranteed. But hope that maybe, just maybe, Jessica's careful plans to destroy him had contained a fatal flaw. She'd documented everything. Over the next 3 months, more evidence emerged through continued discovery. Text messages between Jessica and Robert Sterling discussing how to maximize the take from the divorce. Notes from meetings where they calculated the value of TechFlow solutions and strategized about claiming ownership. Even a draft settlement proposal that showed Jessica planned to offer Marcus 25% of his own company, as if she were being generous. The trial date was set for 6 months after the initial filing, but it never happened. 2 weeks before trial, Patricia Henderson called Frank with a settlement offer. Jessica would walk away with nothing from the business. She'd keep the house but pay Marcus $150,000 from a refinance, essentially buying out his equity share. She'd return the money from the savings account, and she'd waive any claims to his retirement accounts. It's not everything, Frank told Marcus over the phone, but it's a hell of a lot better than where we started. She's essentially admitting defeat. Marcus thought about it. He'd get to keep his business, the thing that mattered most. He'd get back his savings. He'd lose the house, but, honestly, he didn't want to live there anymore anyway. It was contaminated by her betrayal. And he'd walk away owing legal fees but not drowning in them. What's your recommendation? Marcus asked. Take it, Frank said without hesitation. You've won the important battles. Going to trial risks a judge making decisions you can't control, and trials are expensive. This settlement gives you your business and your future back. Sometimes winning isn't about getting everything. It's about getting enough. Marcus signed the settlement papers 1 week later. The day after they were finalized, he met with David Park to officially formalize their partnership agreement in writing, something they should have done 8 years ago. They split the company 5-0 with clear documentation, buy-sell agreements, and protections for both partners. It was what they'd always intended, just now legally binding. I'm sorry you had to go through this, David said after their lawyer left, but I'm glad we're protected now, both of us. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Marcus stood in the parking lot of a small but nice 2-bedroom apartment he'd rented on the opposite side of town from his old house. It wasn't the spacious home he'd shared with Jessica, but it was his. No shared deed, no complicated ownership, just a simple rental agreement in his name only. His sister Maya had helped him furnish it with second-hand finds that were nicer than anything in his old garage apartment. The living room had a comfortable couch, good lighting, and a desk where he could work when he needed to be away from the office. His bedroom was simple, but sufficient, and the second bedroom had been converted into a proper home office, where he could code late into the night when inspiration struck. TechFlow Solutions had survived the divorce intact and was actually thriving. The hospital network project had led to 3 more major contracts, and they'd hired 2 more developers to handle the workload. Marcus's share of the profits for the year would exceed anything he'd made during his marriage. The business he'd almost lost was now secured, protected, and growing. Maya came by one evening with takeout from their favorite Thai place. They sat on his balcony eating pad Thai and talking about the family, about her kids, about their parents' upcoming anniversary party. Then she asked the question he'd been avoiding. "Have you heard from Jessica at all?" Marcus shook his head. "Not since the settlement. Apparently she moved to California with the boyfriend nobody told me about. Started over completely." "Good riddance," Maya said firmly. "I know it's harsh, but Marcus, she tried to destroy you. She hired professionals to help her destroy you. That's not love gone wrong, that's calculated cruelty." "I know. Believe me, I know." Marcus set down his food. "But here's what I've realized. She made a crucial mistake. Her entire plan was built on me not fighting back, on me being too broke and too defeated to challenge her claims. She thought she'd drained enough money that I couldn't afford good legal representation. But you fought back anyway, because I had to. Because the business was everything I'd built, and I wasn't going to just hand it over to someone who'd never earned it. And because she forgot one crucial detail when she was planning her perfect financial ambush." "What detail?" Marcus smiled slightly. "She forgot that I'm the guy who solves complicated problems for a living. I build systems. I debug errors. I find solutions that other people miss. She thought she could out-strategize me with professional help and careful planning. But in the end, her plan had the same problem all bad code has. It worked perfectly until someone actually examined it closely. Then all the flaws became obvious." Maya raised her beer bottle in a toast to spotting the flaws in bad code. Marcus clinked his bottle against hers. "And to documenting everything. Those emails she sent to her financial advisor, that's what saved me. She was so confident in her plan that she documented every step, and that documentation became evidence of fraud." "You know what the real irony is," Maya said. "If she'd just been honest, if she'd just filed for divorce normally and asked for a fair split, she probably would have done okay. You're not vindictive. You would have given her a reasonable settlement." "But reasonable wasn't enough," Marcus said. "She wanted everything. And in trying to take everything, she ended up with almost nothing. Sometimes greed destroys what regular divorce wouldn't." A year after the divorce was finalized, Marcus met someone new. Her name was Linda Park. No relation to David, though the coincidence made them all laugh. She was a project manager at one of TechFlow's client companies, smart and funny and direct in ways that reminded him of Maya. On their third date, over dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant, she asked the question he'd been waiting for. "So you're divorced. Do you want to talk about it?" Marcus had thought carefully about how to handle this moment. He didn't want to be the guy who spent the whole date complaining about his ex-wife, but he also didn't want to hide the reality of what he'd been through. Short version, my ex-wife tried to take everything in the divorce. She hired professionals to help her maximize her claims against me. It got ugly, but I fought back and ended up keeping what mattered most: my business and my future." Linda studied him for a moment. "That must have been awful." It was. "But it also taught me something important." Marcus met her eyes. "I learned the difference between trust and stupidity. I trusted my ex-wife because I loved her. I didn't protect myself legally because I thought protection meant I didn't really trust her. That was stupid. So now what? You don't trust anyone?" "Now I trust people. But I also protect myself. I verify things. I document agreements. I make sure there are legal frameworks around important decisions. That's not being suspicious. That's being smart." Linda nodded slowly. "I can respect that. My ex-husband emptied our joint account when he left me. Took every penny we'd saved for our kids' college fund. So, I get it. Love doesn't mean abandoning common sense." They talked for another 2 hours, sharing war stories from bad marriages. and lessons learned the hard way. When Marcus drove Linda home, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: optimism about the future. Not naive optimism that ignored what he'd been through, but realistic optimism built on wisdom earned through hardship. 2 years after the divorce, Marcus stood in front of TechFlow Solutions team at their annual meeting. The company now had 12 employees, offices in 2 cities, and enough contracts to ensure stability for the next 5 years. David Park stood beside him, grinning as they revealed the news they'd been holding back. "We've been approached by a Fortune 500 company interested in acquiring TechFlow Solutions," Marcus announced. "The offer values our company at $3.5 million. David and I have decided to accept it, which means everyone in this room is about to get a significant bonus from your stock options." The room erupted in cheers and questions. As Marcus fielded inquiries about what this meant for jobs and the future, he couldn't help but think about the irony. 2 years ago, Jessica had tried to take 75% ownership of a company valued at maybe $500,000. Today, that company was worth 7 times that amount, and she had no claim to any of it. If she'd just been patient, if she'd stayed married and let the business grow naturally, she would have benefited from its success. Instead, her greed and her careful planning had left her with nothing, while the company she'd tried to steal became worth millions. Later that evening, Marcus sat with Maya and Linda at a celebratory dinner. Maya raised her glass for a toast to Marcus, who almost lost everything but kept the one thing that mattered, his business, and who turned that business into something worth more than his ex-wife could have imagined. Marcus clinked glasses with them, but he shook his head. "The business isn't the one thing that mattered. The one thing that mattered was learning who I really am, not who I was in that marriage, but who I am when I have to fight for what I've built." Jessica thought she'd broken me. Instead, she made me stronger. Linda squeezed his hand under the table. "I'm glad she didn't succeed in taking everything." "Me too. But in a weird way, I'm also glad it happened." Marcus saw the confused looks and explained. "If the divorce had been normal, if Jessica had just asked for a fair split, I never would have learned how strong I really am. I never would have fought that hard or discovered that I could beat a system designed to destroy me." She thought she'd planned everything perfectly, but she forgot the most important detail. "What was that?" Maya asked. "She forgot that I don't give up on things I've built. She forgot that I'm the guy who solves impossible problems, and she forgot that her perfect plan depended on me being passive and defeated." Marcus smiled. "Turns out, I'm neither of those things. And that one detail, that miscalculation about who I really am, that's what cost her everything." 3 years after the divorce was finalized, Marcus married Linda in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. His lawyer, Frank Morrison, was there, smiling with the satisfaction of someone who'd seen justice done. David Park was best man, joking in his toast about how Marcus had turned out to be too stubborn to be defeated by legal paperwork. But the most meaningful moment came when Marcus's sister Maya gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry simultaneously. 3 years ago, my brother lost almost everything. His wife planned to take his business, his home, his savings, everything he'd worked for. She hired professionals to help her destroy him. She documented her entire strategy for maximum financial devastation. And in documenting that strategy, she handed Marcus the evidence he needed to fight back. Maya raised her glass. "So here's to Jessica Chen, wherever she is. Thanks for being so thorough in planning your betrayal that you created a paper trail showing exactly what you were trying to do. Thanks for underestimating my brother's willingness to fight for what he'd built. And thanks for teaching him that prenups, documentation, and legal protection aren't signs of distrust. They're signs of intelligence." The room erupted in laughter and applause. Marcus looked at Linda, at his family and friends, at the life he'd rebuilt from nothing, and felt genuine gratitude for everything he'd been through. The pain, the betrayal, the fear of losing everything, it had all led him here, to this moment, to this life that was genuinely his own. That night, after the guests had gone home, Marcus sat with Linda on their apartment balcony. She'd moved in 3 months ago, but they'd been careful about legal protections. separate bank accounts with one joint account for shared expenses, clear documentation of who owned what, a prenuptial agreement that protected them both and made expectations clear. "Do you think I'm paranoid?" Marcus asked. "All these legal protections, all this documentation." Linda thought about it. "I think you're smart. You learned an expensive lesson about trust and verification. That doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you wise." "I do trust you," Marcus said. "I trust you completely. But I also trust documentation and clear agreements. Both can be true at the same time. I know. And I appreciate it, honestly. The prenup protects me too. If something happens, we both know exactly where we stand. That's not lack of faith. That's mutual respect." Marcus pulled out his phone and looked at an email he'd received earlier that day. It was from Robert Sterling, the financial advisor who'd helped Jessica plan her divorce strategy. Apparently, he'd been sued by another client whose divorce had gone similarly wrong, and he was reaching out to Marcus asking him not to testify in the case. Marcus showed the email to Linda. "What do you think I should do?" "Testify," Linda said without hesitation. "He helped your ex-wife try to destroy you. If he's doing the same thing to other people, someone needs to stop him." Marcus typed a response. "Mr. Sterling, I'll be happy to testify about my experience with your divorce asset maximization services. Other people deserve to know what they're really paying for. Professional help committing fraud against their spouses. See you in court." He hit send and put his phone away. "One more loose end tied up. Do you ever wonder what Jessica's doing now?" Linda asked. "Whether she regrets what she did?" Marcus thought about it. "Honestly, I don't care. She's not part of my life anymore. She tried to destroy me and failed. Whether she regrets it or learned from it or is still out there planning other people's destruction, that's not my problem to solve." "Fair enough." Linda leaned against him. "For what it's worth, I'm glad her plan failed. If she'd succeeded in taking your business, you and I never would have met." "Silver linings," Marcus agreed. "Though I could have done without the $50,000 in legal fees and 2 years of stress. But you won." "I did, not because I was smarter than her or because I had better lawyers, though Frank was excellent. I won because she made one crucial mistake that unraveled her entire plan. The documentation," Linda said. "The documentation," Marcus confirmed. "She was so confident, so sure her plan was foolproof, that she wrote everything down. Every strategy session, every tactical decision, every cold calculation about how to maximize her take while minimizing my ability to fight back. And all that documentation became evidence of fraud that destroyed her case." He pulled Linda closer. "The lesson there isn't just about divorce or business or legal protection. It's about life. When you're doing something wrong, when you're betraying someone or planning their destruction, document everything, because that documentation might be exactly what brings you down in the end." "That's a weird lesson to take away from this," Linda laughed. "Maybe, but it's true. Jessica forgot one detail when she was planning to leave me with nothing. She forgot that evidence of wrongdoing tends to surface eventually. You can't plan someone's destruction and expect all the planning documents to stay hidden forever. Eventually, in discovery or investigations or just random chance, the truth comes out. And when it does, all that careful planning becomes proof of exactly what you were trying to do." The moral of this story is both simple and complex. It teaches us that trust without verification is dangerous. Marcus trusted Jessica completely, never protecting himself legally, never documenting agreements, never questioning her motives. That trust was weaponized against him, used to position him for maximum vulnerability when she decided to strike. But we also learned that greed often contains the seeds of its own destruction. Jessica wasn't content with a fair divorce settlement. She wanted everything: the house, the business, the savings, the retirement accounts. And in pursuing everything with professional help and careful planning, she created documentation of fraud that ultimately defeated her claims. The story teaches us about resilience and fighting back when systems seem designed to destroy us. Marcus could have accepted defeat, signed over his business, walked away with nothing. Many people would have, overwhelmed by legal complexity and expensive representation. But he fought back, finding the resources to challenge unjust claims, and discovered that careful planning by adversaries often creates vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Most importantly, we learn that protecting yourself legally isn't a sign of distrust or pessimism. It's a sign of wisdom and respect. Marcus's mistake wasn't trusting Jessica. It was failing to create legal protections that would safeguard both of them regardless of what happened to their relationship. Clear agreements, documentation, legal frameworks, these things protect everyone involved, not just one party. The call to action is clear. Protect yourself, even when you love someone, especially when you love someone. Have prenuptial agreements. Document business ownership clearly. Keep some financial accounts separate. Make sure legal structures match verbal agreements. Not because you don't trust your partner, but because unexpected things happen, people change, and having protection doesn't prevent love. It just prevents preventable devastation if love ends. If you're going through a divorce where your spouse is claiming everything, fight back. Don't accept that you're powerless just because someone hired good lawyers and made careful plans. Often, those plans contain flaws. Overreach, documented evidence of fraud, timing that reveals opportunism. Find a good lawyer. Request discovery. Look for patterns that reveal intent. Document everything in your own life. Not to be paranoid, but to create clear records of agreements, decisions, and ownership. If Marcus had documented his business ownership clearly from the start, Jessica's claims would have failed immediately. Instead, he had to fight because documentation was missing. If someone is planning to betray you, understand that their planning often creates evidence. Jessica's emails to her financial advisor, her strategy documents, her careful timing, all of it became evidence against her. People who do wrong things rarely do them without leaving traces. Sometimes those traces take time to surface, but persistence in discovery often reveals them. Remember that fair splits are usually better than fighting for everything. If Jessica had just asked for a reasonable divorce settlement, she probably would have done fine financially. Instead, her greed led her to hire consultants to maximize her claims, which created evidence of fraud that left her with almost nothing. Sometimes settling fairly is smarter than fighting for total victory. Finally, understand that betrayal, while painful, can teach important lessons about your own strength. Marcus discovered capabilities he didn't know he had: the ability to fight sophisticated legal strategies, the resilience to rebuild from nothing, the strength to create something even better than what he'd lost. Sometimes losing everything reveals that you're capable of building something new. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If it touched you, if it made you think differently about protection and trust and legal frameworks in relationships, please share it with someone who needs this message. Subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, justice, and the unexpected ways truth emerges even from carefully planned betrayals. Leave a comment about your own experiences with divorce, financial betrayal, or fighting back against systems designed to defeat you. May you have the wisdom to protect yourself while still loving fully. May you find the strength to fight back when someone tries to destroy you. May you create legal frameworks that protect everyone involved. And may you remember that careful plans often contain the seeds of their own destruction when those plans are built on fraud and betrayal. Remember, when someone plans to leave you with nothing, they often forget one crucial detail, and that forgotten detail might be exactly what saves you.